Hello friends, welcome to my channel Igno Center. So friends, today we will go on to deal with MG02 British drama, and before this video we have already dealt with question number 1, and today we will move to question number 2. And this assignment is for British drama MG02, and the year is 2022 to 23. So you may check a question answer. So let me give you here the question which we will going to deal for today. So we have already dealt with discuss waiting for Godot from the perspective of the theater of the episode. So today we will going to deal with discuss the typical Shakespearean comic element in the play in a Midsummer Night Dream. So friends, after this we will make next video which is our part 3. So this video is part 2, and if you did not watch our part 1 video which is discuss waiting for Godot from the perspective of the theater of the episode, so they will deal question number 1, and in this video we will going to deal with question number 2 which is our part 2 video. So just a minute. So friend, this is the solve assignment PDF. So let's deal with our today question, which is discuss the typical and Shakespearean comic element in the play in a Midsummer Night Dream. So this carry 20 marks for your assessment, and we have already dealt with discuss the waiting for Godot. As I already told you, it, this video you will get in part 1. So let's move to our today's question, which is discuss the typical Shakespearean comic element in the play in A Midsummer Night Dream. So the answer for this question is A Midsummer Night Dream is a romantic comedy. It follows the comic adventure of four lovers in a wood populated by fairies who are busy trying to sort out their own romantic differences. At times, the play's language and subject matter approach tragedy, but its ending, which features happy wedding for all the principal characters, solidifies the play designation as a comedy. This genre issue, as well as the play language and structure, form the basis of much of the critical discussion of A Midsummer Night Dream. The sexual escapes of the lovers as well as the fairies are also of critical interest. Other areas of scholarly debate include the play concerned with myth and rituals and problematic roles of the challenging child. The second part of the play may appear like an obscure and irrelevant exercise to you, but some of you may wish to go on to research or teaching, and it will help you to know how meticulously scholars have worked to make the text of Shakespeare play as authentic as possible. The play were initially written as performance tasks. Romantic comedy. A Midsummer Night Dream is one of Shakespeare's greatest comedy. It is not limited to one single comedy and mix several dimensions. That is what makes it interesting. It is also more than a comedy in the sense that it could have become tragedy. Shakespeare has used many genres to convey his stories, especially comedies, tragedies, and historical play. A Midsummer Night Dream is a comedy. A comedy is a kind of drama which is intended primarily to entertain the audience and which usually ends unhappily for the characters. There are romantic comedies revolving around love and satiric comedies. Because A Midsummer Night Dream is a romantic comedy, it obeys certain convention, but since it was written by Shakespeare, it undercuts the convention even while seems to observe them. A romantic comedy usually center on a pair of lovers in a difficult situation who overcome the obstacles that separates them and end up getting married and living happily ever after. In Shakespearean play, we find multiple lovers, including a reluctant bride taken captive in war, a married couple fighting over custody of a child, and two conventional young couples who keep falling in love with each other partners. Although the couples getting appropriately sorted out and they all get married at the end of the play, their cruel treatment of each others in the midnight forest make us wonder how long the happily ending will last. It has main plot and subplot. In the main plot, an eligible aristocratic man and woman fall in love with each other but cannot marry for some reason. They may be socially incompatible, or their families may have a long standing quarrel, or it could be that the man or the woman do not even realize that they are in love, as is the case with Benedict and Beatrix in Much Ado About Nothing. Most production of A Midsummer Night Dream gloss over disturbing aspect of the story by presenting hurtful scenes as comedy. This makes the audience assume that the lovers will indeed live happily ever after. But we believe that the pain felt by Herminia and Helena when they are coldly rejected must be acknowledged. Because it is an integral aspect of the play, we also feel that Hippolyta reluctance to reward Thesis with love after he conquers her people and take her captive should be respected. We therefore insist on keeping the ending dramatic. How to portray the fairy world is always a nice challenge in any production of this play. With the help of special effect, we kept as close as we can to Shakespeare requirement that fairness be small enough to creep into a corn's cup, but large enough to make love to a human being. Our fairness therefore change size at will. Since they are forest fairies, we clothed them in forest green, except for Titania, who, as a queen of the night, wear black with glands of white forest flower. Although Puck exclaimed the signature line of the play, Lord, what fools these mortals be! Both Oberon and Puck are clearly affected by the cruel behavior they observe among the earthly lovers and they try to make things right. Oberon's tricking Titania into falling in love with the ass-headed Bottom does no one any harm and give Bottom the love experience of his life. First, a romantic comedy represents the pastoral world which the aristocratic Athenians, Lysander and Herminia run away to when their love is prevented by Herminia's father and Duke Theseus. Pastoral element courtly people live an idolized rural life. Originally an element of pastoral romance, exploited by Shakespeare for his comic plot and often parodied therein for humorous effect. But even though Oberon would like to see the right man and woman paired together, so much Unhappiness occurs in the forest that the Athenians long for Athens. Secondly, Shakespeare has not one but two surplus instead of two sets of character, one aristocratic and the other plebeian. He has three sets of character, one aristocratic and the other plebeian. He has three sets of character. The fairies are the additional group, but its aristocrats. King Oberon and Queen Titania seem to defy every value of romantic comedy. The They quarrel and threaten to live apart even though they are married. Titania quite enjoys her extramarital affair with Bottom, and she falls in love with an animal-headed mortal who is quite below her in status and not even a fairy. Oberon used deceit to get the Indian boy they are quarreling. Language. Shakespeare has used variety of style in A Midsummer Night's Dream. It contains a fair amount of regular old prose, how we talk every day, but it is famous for its dazzling display of verse or poetry. The three most common type of verse in the play are iambic pentameter, rhyme verse, and catalectic trochaic tetrameter. Shakespeare used blank verse, which is supposed to be closest to spoken English. Blank verse is unrhymed verses in iambic pentameter. Poetic lines have a regular rhythm. Each rhythmic unit is called a foot. A rhythmic foot has a fixed number of syllables. Rhythmic varies and each has a name. An iambic is a rhythmic unit or foot made up of two syllables. The syllabus is unstressed, the second stressed. For example, the cow is an iamb because we emphasize cow, but not the when we speak. A pentameter means that there are 5 feet of a particular meter to line. Here is an example of iambic pentameter from a Midsummer Night Dream. We have divided it into feet. Oh, why rebuke you him that loves you so? Shakespeare varied the verse by changing the length of line. He increased or reduced the number of syllables in a line. Sometimes he used short sentence for Shakespeare for speakers at some point, as in the famous between Hermensia and Helena. Hermia, you juggler, you canker blossom, you thief of love, what have you come by night and stolen my love heart from him? Helena, fine I fed. Have you no modesty, no maiden shame, no touch of blissfulness? What will you tear? Impetent answer from my gentle tongue. Shakespeare traditionally uses the elevated style and diction of poetry for elevated character while using the ordinary style and diction of prose for lesser character. Unique. You can play no part but Paramus. For Paramus is a sweet-faced man, a proper man, one as one shall see in a summer's day, a most lovely gentleman-like man. Therefore, you must needs play Paramus. In addition, Titania used poetic language from the pastoral tradition. Speaking of pastoral element that loved nature and described nature with admiring details. As an example, she speaks of rushy brook and whistling wind, both characteristic of description in the pastoral tradition. Titania met we on hill, in dell, forest, or mead, by pave fountain or by rushy brook, or in the bleak margent of the sea, to dance o'er our ringlets to the whistling wind. It might also be said that the words play Shakespeare uses is another variety of language style in the play. Demetrius and Helena offer a good illustration of word's play and pruning of the word sick and the idea of being made sick by someone. Demetrius says he is made sick when he has to look at Helena, while Helena turns the words around and says she is sick when she is unable to look at him. Demetrius, tempt not too much the hatred of my spirit, for I am sick when I do look on thee, Helena, and I am sick when I look not on you. Rhetoric in the play. Rhetoric is the theory and practice of spoken or written eloquence and the art of literary expression. Different kinds of rhetorics are called sets. For example, a thesis is a familiar rhetorical set much used in courtly love sonnet, in which lovers repeatedly burn and freeze. The young lovers in A Midsummer Night Dream seems to have read so much of this love poetry that their speeches have been described as being pestered with antitheses. Bibliography. The play A Midsummer Night Dream by William Shakespeare represents interest and values to the audience. While reading and understanding play, people interpret in different ways. Some interpret in one way and some in other. It depends how you read and understand. Let us understand it by studying in three important points: text, criticism, and journals. The text. The most authoritative version in the Adrian edition, edited by Harold F. Brooks. Most students will find this challenging, although the introduction is well worth reading. Some editions are published by Longman, a Heinemann, for critical writing about the play. You should use the Cashbook anthology. At a more basic level, the Brandeis notes and York notes Longman may help you. For general background information about Shakespeare, M.S. Marchetti, Cutis, Shakespeare and his Stage University of London, 1953 is hard to beat. Criticism. A Midsummer Night Dream traced the response of critical theory to a play peculiarly informed by modern preoccupations, imagination, representation, and power, sexual representation, and subjective transformation, patriarchal society, class structure, and the limits of language. The introduction and endnotes on individual item illustrate the main themes and methodologies, showing how each item contributes to a vigorous, wider debate about the Shakespearean text in modern culture. The bibliography is far from complete. There is a wealth of material written about A Midsummer Night Dream and about Shakespeare's work in general. What you will find here are the bibliographical details of all books that have been cited or mentioned below. Number 1. Dutton Richard. Ed. New Casebook, A Midsummer Night Dream, Contemporary Critical Essay, London Macmillan Press, 1966. Number 2. Keller, Dorothy, ed. A Midsummer Night Dream Critical Essay, New York and London, Garland Publishing, 1998. Keller's anthologies contain many of the same essays as the new casebook collection and also a few influential older essays, such as Jane Coates. They are also a good introduction with a historical survey of criticism and approaches to the play, and a section of essay about recent production of the play. At the time of writing, it cost $77, whereas Dutton collection is available for $20. The university libraries is in both Oslo and Bergen have Keller's anthology, and the library in Bergen has Dutton's. Number 3. Barber's C.L. May Games and Metamorphoses on a Midsummer Night, Shakespeare's festive comedy, a study of dramatic form and its relation to social custom, Princeton, UP 1959. An essential study of the grounding of the romantic comedies in early modern holidays custom that afford a kind of statutory catharsis from frustration over social constraint. Keller's 1998 to 28. This book is a classic of festive criticism on the play. Journal. Journals play the important role in professing the spirit of the play. It conveys the actual interpretation of the play. One of such journals are Shakespeare Quarterly and ELH. ELH provides some rich information on Shakespeare plays. We can conclude that A Midsummer Night Dream is a comedy. Shakespeare first informed the audience of the very serious problem of the young lovers and of the fairy king and queen, contemplated by the less serious to us problem of the mechanical in presenting the play by bringing the different group of characters together in the wood. The author is able to show how the character become more confused before Puck at the end of Act 3 separate the young lovers. The antidote to the loves in idleness juice is given to Lysander, and in 4.1 Titania is also cruel before the lovers are found by Thesis, and Bottom wakes with a hazy recollection of his dream, which may be no less articulate than the lovers attempts to recall what has happened in the wood. A Midsummer Night Dream 1. A Midsummer Night Dream deals with the universal theme of love and its complication, lost, disappointment, confusion, marriage. The plot focuses on three parallel stories, the trials and experiences of two sets of lovers camping in a magical forest, the world of the fairy king and queen, and the elves, and a group of rough craftsmen attempting to stage a production of Paramus and Thisbe for the wedding of the Duke of Athens. Hermia is in love with Lysander, but her father wants to marry to Demetrius. To escape the arranged marriage, she and Lysander elope into the woods. Demetrius follows them, and he is pursued by Helena, who nurses an unrequited passion for him. A love quadrangle develops among the young lovers when mischievous Puck play Cupid. The course of true love never did run smooth, says Lysander. Meanwhile, a group of amateur actors rehearses a badly written play in the woods, and soon all find their lives changed by the doing of Oberon and Titania, the warring king and queen of the fairies. Magic, action, love, and the humor are the ingredients for this unforgettable spell. This is widely performed around the world, and no wonder it's about the world's most popular pastime, falling in love. But as Puck knows, falling in love can make fools of us all. Love is crazy, love is mad. Will love win out in the end? The Athenian aristocrats. A Midsummer Night Dream started a virtually end with the aristocrats. It starts with Thesis. We interpret this relationship with Hippolyta in the sense which decide how we shall with the relationship of the other rebels. The play traced the romantic escapades of four young Athenian lovers lost on a midsummer night in a forest ruled by fairies. The dream-like events that occur in the enchanted woods are framed by Court's sense dominated by Thesis' rule of Athens. Another group of characters designed and racist, artisan or mechanicals led by Bottom the Weaver also inhabited the play and enhanced its comedic effects. Although the plot seemed whimsical and amusing and the play ends happily, many critics argue against, exclaiming the play on simply a comedic level, noting that the unwavering twist and turn of the plot often veer towards tragedy. Critical commentary on A Midsummer Night Dream has tended to focus on Shakespeare's view on the nature of love, the meaning and purpose of art and imagination, the reconciliation of discordant dramatic element, and the role of perception, illusions, and ambiguity in the play. Theseus' announcement of his marriage. Theseus is the Duke of Athens and consequently the most powerful character in the courtly realm of the play, though he is missing entirely from Act 2 and 3. His upcoming wedding to Hippolyta is the subject of the play opening and closing act. Bracketing the entire play are Thesis' announcement of his wedding to Hippolyta and the celebration of three weddings, presumably 4 days later, though it seemed like the next morning. Shakespeare doesn't reveal much about the Thesis Hippolyta, much beyond the fact that they have been at war and now they are marrying. In his only comment on the subject, Thesis confessed, I woo thee with my squaut, and won thy love doing thee injuries. Their name for some of the audience would identify them as the king of Athens and queen of Amazon who married after he captured her in battle. For the rest of the audience, it won't matter much beyond his function of kind duke, who postpones judgment on Herminia, disobedient to her father until the wedding day. At the end of Act 4, the Duke's sunrise hunting party discover the couple asleep in the forest and he invites them to join his wedding ceremony. Theseus responds. Theseus can hardly wait to spend the night with his bride to be. 4 happy days seem like an eternity when you are in love. To make the time pass quickly, Theseus tells his party planner Philostrate to go and stir up the Athenian youth to merriments. Read partying, hooking up, and fooling around, which is basically what goes down in the woods. Theseus is more than a guy who likes to celebrate. As the Duke of Athens, he also the place resident judge Judy, so he'll all about upholding law and order. This is why Aegeus turns to him when his unruly daughter Hermia refuses to marry the guy he is chosen for her. In this case, Aegeus begs Theseus to uphold Athenian's law, which dictates the death penalty for disobedient children. I beg the ancient privilege of Athens. As she is mine, I may dispose of her, which shall be either to this gentleman or to her death according to our law. Immediately provides in that case. Thesis' response is the subject of some debate. As we know, he offered Hermesia two choices if she refused to marry, the death penalty or life as a celibate nun. Some audience view this as evidence of Theseus' benevolence and compassion because he offered Hermesia a choice other than marriage or death. The argument goes something like this: in offering Hermesia an alternative and encouraging her to think long and hard about her choice, Thesis is being sensitive to her feeling, and though he won't bend the law for her, we get the sense that he truly wants Hermia to be happy. If you like this argument, then you'll also want to think about the fact that eventually Thesis overrides Aegeus' wish and grants Hermesia and Lysander permission to marry. On the other hand, some audience and literary critics think these lines of reasoning is a crock of bull. Such critics argued that Thesis doesn't actually offer Hermesia any positive choice in the matter. Further, he tells her that being a lifelong virgin is pretty much the same as a death sentence because celibacy is like withering on a virgin throne. The marriage death nun thing also seems like a blatant attempt to control Hermesia's sexuality. If she won't marry the guy of her father choosing, then she'll die or she won't have sex with anyone ever. The lovers or town and country. Young, impulsive, changeable, and nearly interchangeable, the quartet of lovers in A Midsummer Night Dream focus the plot but seems also to be pawns in everyone else's games. The main love story based on the Babylonian tale of Paramus and Thisbe, a sort of Romeo and Juliet story retold by Ovid in the metamorphosis occurs twice in A Midsummer Night Dream, each time with a different ending. In Ovid's story, the fathers of Paramus and Thisbe have built a wall to separate the house and the children. Undoubted Paramus and Thisbe whisper through a crack and fall in love, promising to meet outside the city wall and run away. When Thisbe arrives, she sees a lioness and drops her veil as she runs for shelter in a cave. Paramus finds the veil which the lioness has stained with the blood of a recently eaten lamb. Thinking the lioness has devoured Thisbe, Paramus stabbed himself. Thisbe returned from the cave, find the dying Paramus and distraught fall on his sword. The, they die in each other's arms. This is the plot act out by Burton and the other rustic. Hence, in A Midsummer Night Dream, we find one sense follow another. The sequence of an action is romantic comedy take place from court or city to a forest or a country and back to the court or city. The court obstructs true love which flowers in a pastoral ambience. The impediments to love are meanwhile removed and the lovers return to a kinder, more human court where weddings, feast and dance symbolizing harmony conclude the action. A Midsummer Night Dreams follow this sequence, but in the next part of this chapter we'll analyze a pattern of the play, not in sequential action. In this play, dramatic elements seems to come in sets of two. There are two sets of lovers, two rule and two men who fall in love with the wrong woman. Pattern impose order on chaos. They order disorder. The rigid pattern of A Midsummer Night Dream control the wildly changing relationship between the characters. The result is like a dancer in a dance. Too, the movements are energetic and constant, but they are controlled by the discipline of the dance. We have to decide which pattern we wish to analyze. For this, we will follow the method of structuralism. Structural critics emphasize the binaries in a text. For structural analysis, we must isolate two opposite ideas or images and group dramatic element under this. Many noticeable libraries in A Midsummer Night Dreams are light and dark, daylight and moonlight, human and fairies, aristocrat and artisan. According to binary classification, some of the dramatic elements of A Midsummer Night Dreams are discussed below. Each of such exercise describe about the play as well as Shakespeare's skills in organizing his dramatic material. Dramatic action in Athens take place in the court. Thesis of moral rules. Athenian law is harsh and used to maintain order in society. Lovers are unhappily here. Lysander and Hermesia are separated because of a law that Thesis say he cannot alter. Helena is rejected by Demetrius, who once made love to her as Lysander reports, and Thesis and Doris. Thesis say he has wanted to speak to Demetrius about this, but it split his mind. Athens has a hierarchical patriarchal social order. The duke is head to the state, the father of the family, the women are expected to obey them. The forest represents the pastoral or natural world. Oberon, the fraile king, rules. Practical jokes, songs, and chorals occurs, but there is no evident law. Oberon wants the human lovers to be happy. The forest seems to be a place of disorder. The king and the queen of fairies are married but have quarreled. While Athenian women must obey the man, Queen Titania defies her husband and asserts her right to keep the Indian boy. Lovers literally lose each other in the forest. Lovers fall out of love. The Athenian men fall in love with the same woman. The mechanicals lost their star actors. A Midsummer Night Dream 2. A Midsummer Night Dream is surely one of the most often produced of Shakespeare's play and clearly for producers, one of the most accessible. Its popularity can be drawn from the distinctive character that represent three unique words, those of the rarefied world of nobility, ordinary workman, and fairly kingdom catch in a web of action. At the core of the play is the theatrical device of moving the story or action of the play and its character from the court of society of man to the woods where non-human entities range. In doing so, Shakespeare provides us with an outlet for change. He gives us the chance to witness the characters going through a lifestyle altering experience with the understanding that in Midsummer Shakespeare offers the complexity of three societies with the social hierarchy and unique social structure. We have attempted to render this production in a non-traditional manner. We reveal the magic of this popular story by placing it in the early 1950s on an unspecified island in a Great Antilles. In A Midsummer Night Dream, we have seen both the human and non-human character, Love, Angus Reynolds, and Paul Sawyer, 1959, examines Titania, Four Fairy Servant, Cobweb, Pea Blossom, Mustard Seeds, and Moth, and content that they represent the healing properties of folk medicine and the importance of folk practice in forging a connection between the nature and supernatural world. The chief difficulty in reading A Midsummer Night Dream or even watching it perform it is that it seems in the end to be not one play but several separate stands very tentatively locked together. So, in this unit, we will take up and study three chief areas of interest. Number one, the fairies who live in the forest and interact with the molars. Number two, the dream of vision, which take up so much of the attachment time of the play. Number three, the female character, both human and non-human, who give the play much of its ultimately serious turn. The fairies. There are many ways of looking at the fairies and their function in A Midsummer Night Dream. As a playwright, Shakespeare drew on many sources for his plays. Fairies are an integral part of Celtic folklore. A belief in this magical creature was a part of his world growing up. For example, fairy circles can still be found in the countryside around Stratford upon Avon. They also reflect the nature world. The conflict between Oberon and Titania has caused the fairies world to divide themselves between the two power and magic creature. This in turn has caused the world that mankind inhabits to be adversely affected. Until their conflict is resolved, mankind will continue to be adversely affected. Titania explained it all in Act 2, Scene 1. They are nature agents, so to speak. In many modern productions, the role of Hippolyta and Titania and Thesis and Oberon are doubled in this way. Man himself is viewed both in the daytime or real world, the nighttime, and the world of dream. In other words, the dual nature of human being is exposed. In the nighttime world, dream can be revealing and help to resolve a daytime problem. Dreams can be sweet, strange, confusing, and all muddled up, so to speak. Dream can also turn into nightmare. In Shakespeare play, the fairy manipulates the dream, and once the conflict is solved between Oberon and Titania, the daytime world has sweeter dream. The role of the fairies. Looking at the role of the fairies in A Midsummer Night Dream, when we look at the use of fairies in the play A Midsummer Night Dream, one of the first thing that come to mind is that the play is set in Athens, Greek, which list fairies are of distinctly Crichton, English UK origin. There are those that suggest that in the play A Midsummer Night Dream, Shakespeare did not do his homework regarding fairies. Greek fairies, I tend to agree with sentiment. However, it may be that if he had only used Greek reference, then his audience may not have understood or identified with the play as much as though his use of character of Puck. The name Puck was formerly applied to the whole race of fairies and not to any individual spirit. Puck or Pokey being an old word for devil, in which sense it is used in a vision of Pyrrhus plowman. Out of the Puck's pondfold, no may priest may as witches. In A Midsummer Night Dream, William Shakespeare gave his Puck the name and nature of the more benevolent Robin Goodfellow. However, Shakespeare Puck is more closely tied to the fairy court than most Puck or Robin Goodfellows. Puck is the old creature. He has abilities that the rest do not have. His special gifts are the that he can fly around the earth at great speed and he can execute mischief, and it is for this that he is summoned by Oberon to help him steal the Indian boy from Titania and in the process make a mockery of her for withdrawing her attention and favor for him. Puck's name is of special interest. For one thing, it set him apart from Oberon and Titania, who have classical name as well as from the other fairies who are called by the name from nature such as mustard seed, pea blossom, and quite delightfully cobweb. Puck served Oberon, the fairies king. He freely admitted to be a Seward and cannabis spirit. He is sent by Oberon to find the flower, love in idleness, and is told to apply his juicy to the eye of Demetrius to make him fall in love with Helena. He earnestly administers the juicy to Lysander, who loved Hermesia, thus producing the that both men fall in love with the same woman, Helena. For the sake of enjoyment, he also transforms the action neck bottom head in that of an ass, so that Titania, the fairy queen, will fall in love with him, a beast, and will forget to look after a little Indian boy whom Oberon wants to turn into a knight. Later, Oberon realized Puck's mistake and orders him to produce a dark fog to lead the rival lovers within it by imitating their voice, and then to apply an antidote to Lysander eyes. Though A Midsummer Night Dream divides its action between several groups of characters, Puck is the closest thing the play has to a protagonist. His mischievous spirit pervades the atmosphere, and his actions are responsible for many of the complications that develop the main plot in a chaotic way. More than Puck, capricious spirit, magical fancy, funny, loving humor, and lovely, evocating language permeated the atmosphere of the play. Wild contrasts such as the implicit comparison between the rough, earthy craftsman and the delicate, graceful fairies dominate the play. Puck seems to illustrate many of these contrasts within his own character. He is graceful but not so sweet as the other fairies, and he is given to a certain coarseness which led him to transform Bottom's head into that of an ass just for enjoyment. Puck is good hearted but capable of cruel tricks. Finally, whereas most of the fairies are beautiful and ethereal, Puck is often portrayed as some somewhat bizarre looking. In fact, the fairy mentioned that some call Puck a goblin, a term whose connotations are decidedly less glamorous than those of fairy. One of the aspects that may draw attention is that although Puck seems to appear with most of the characters, he only interacts with Oberon, his master. In fact, all the dialogues in which Puck is present deal with Oberon, except in Act 2, Scene 1, where the Puck presents itself to a fairies, and in Act 3, Scene 2, where he pretends to be Lysander with Demetrius and vice versa. But in this case, he is not present for both young men as they just hear Pug voice. So we can state that Pug relationship and interaction with other characters is practically inexistent, but at the same time his actions are essential for the development of the relationship between the other characters. Puck sees himself as a naughty master that play with mortal people as if they were puppets. He takes advantage of one of humankind weakness, love for Puck. Love is either a nonsense pet more evil than good, or just a funny thing that human and others being stupid enough to fall into it do to show him a laughing good time, as he put it. Up and down, I will let them up and down. I am fed in full and down, glowing let them up and down. In fact, one of the most famous quotations in the play is Puck's statement, Lord, what fools these mortals be, because it captures the encouraged silliness of the lovers' behavior. Second, because it marks the contrast between the human lovers completely absorbed in their emotion and the magical fairies impressing and never too serious. The dream. There is much play on dream in this drama. As the title suggests, dreams are an important theme in A Midsummer Night Dream. They are linked to the brazery, magical mishap in the forest. Hippocrates' first words in the place evident the prevalence of dream. 4 days will quickly steps themselves in night. 4 nights will quickly dream away the time, and various characters mention dreams throughout. The theme of dreaming recurs predominantly when characters attempt to explain Rajai events in which these characters are involved. I have had a dream past the wit of a man to say what dream it was. Man is but an as if he go about exponent this dream. Bottom says, unable to fathom the magical happenings that have affected him as anything but the result of slumber. Shakespeare is also interested in the actual working of dream, in how events occurs without explanation, time loses its normal sense of flow, and the impossible occurs as a matter of course. He seeks to recreate this environment in the play, though the intervention of the fairies in the magical forest at the end of the play, Puck extends the idea of dream to the audience members themselves, saying that if they have been often by the play, they should remember it as nothing more than a dream. This sense of illusion and gauzy fragility is crucial to the atmosphere of A Midsummer Night Dream, as it helps render the play a fantastical experience rather than a heavy drama. The woman in her greatest perfection, was made to serve and obey man. This statement by the Scottish Protestant leader John Knox is the first blast of the template shows the role that Elizabethan women were expected to fulfill. Women in the Elizabethan era and therefore in the time of when Shakespeare wrote his play were subservient to man and had no will and choice of their own. As they were not allowed to go to school and enter university, they remained completely dependent on their male relatives, believing that they were inferior to them and thus following their will. This included that marriages were usually arranged by a powerful male relative instead of giving the woman the priority of choosing a husband that she loved. It is therefore no wonder that Shakespeare depicted woman in a role that was completely normal and familiar to him, therefore subservient to and completely depend on man. And in this essay I will try to show that this is the case in A Midsummer Night Dream. The friendship that women have between themselves, the character of Hermia and the character of Hippolyta, the relationship women have in this play deserve close examination, for in some cases they are so to be superior to the relationship female character have with male character, and in some cases they are shown to be destroyed by petty rivalries and jealousies. In the course of love, interestingly, the first type is shown by Titania and her justification for keeping the Indian challenging boy. She tells Oberon in vivid terms about her relationship with the mother. In the specific Indian air by night, full often had she gossip by my side. It is for her sake that Titania will not abandon the boy. This relationship then seems to be more important and more tenuous than the relationship between Titania and Oberon herself, and arguably it could be this that drives Oberon to jealousy. You can see the second type of relationship between Hermia and Helena. Helena, distracted by her unrequited love for Demetrius, betray her dear friend and her plan to elope with Lysander in the vague hope it will make Demetrius like her. Later on, both of them faced with Demetrius and Lysander loving Helen, fight and exchange vicious insults. Female friend in this instance is something that seems to be easily broken and rather fragile. The character of Hermione, especially in Act 1, Scene 1, is worthy for attention, and she is very bold in defying her father's will, in spite of his right by the laws, and refusing to marry Demetrius. Women of this time, we are told, were literally regarded as their father's possession, fit to bestow who they thought appropriate, and Hermesia's action shows her to be a woman of considerable pluck. Lastly, you will want to examine the character of Hippolyta. Interestingly, directions have differed in the casting of Hippolyta, some of them showing her to be happy with her lots and in love with Thesis, others showing her to be a conquered bride, forced into marriage with Thesis, and therefore creating an interesting parallel with the situation of Hermia and Lysander. The recent film with Sophie Marceau playing Hippolytus depict this very well. With Hippolyta, obviously, the recentest film with Sophia Marceau playing with Hippolyta depict this very well. With Hippolyta, obviously identify these parallels and unhappily with Thesis for not doing anything about it, but in the end, loving him for letting the four lovers marry. To sum up this observation, it has become obvious that Hermia and Helena in A Midsummer Night Dream are expected to subject themselves to a male authority. Helena especially fulfilled the role of the dependent, obedient woman who does not have a will of her own and humiliates herself just for the sake of male attention. However, this is of course not only a subjection because of a social circumstance, but also because of unreturned love and Helena observation with Demetrius. Therefore, we cannot assume that social roles are the reason for everything that happened between the major characters of the play, as Helena jealously and insecurity are natural, quite powerful human emotions that have nothing to do with gender roles. Shakespeare may be suggesting that subjection and insecurity both cause many problems which women may not be able to solve. So, friend, till here we have completed question number 2 also, and in the next part we will meet with question number 3, since this was the longest question I ever dealt with. So question number 2 is the longest question I ever dealt with. So I have also dealt with question number 2 now and finished it. So in the next video we will move with question number 3. Thank you. And if you're new to our channel, please make subscribe to our channel and go to this description box. There you will find a link of our another channel. Please make subscribe to this too. Thank you.